my briefing today will be, as usual, over the past couple of weeks, will be focused on our COVID-19 impacts and our respective response. The City Council last week, Wednesday, discussed and decided to lay off about 82 employees, plus also to eliminate an additional 20 or so vacated positions. And we did this with a heavy heart, but we had to do it because many of our facilities are currently closed, and all those employees that most of them were affected by the layoffs are working in those facilities. These are the library, the sports center, the recreation centers, but also our conference center. In addition to that, as I stated, we laid off, we eliminated positions that were already vacant in order also to help balance our budget and offset those revenue losses. That was not an easy decision for the council, and they really wrestled with that decision. However, they understood the need to act because the city budget is not a treasure chest, so to speak, is not filled with gold and diamonds. We have finite resources, and we are also especially tasked by a lot of other interest groups to step up to the plate and help them out in order to help the economy. So the city of Monterey was hang on. Okay, thank you, Bob Petty. So it is it was a very difficult decision for the council, and we are planning on bringing a great deal of those employees back as soon as we are able to open our economy again. And that brings me to the topic that I wanted to talk about as well, is the opening efforts that are going that are underway right now. A lot of folks are discussing how are we opening up the economy, and when you see what we are receiving as feedback here at City Hall, I can tell you that there is a shift in opinion. There is a shift of messaging. We receive quite a few emails that are showing a certain impatience, showing a certain anger with respect to the shelter-in-place order and demanding that certain aspects of our daily life are being restored. And with that, I wanted to talk briefly about who does what and who is in charge of what. Again, the governor's office is setting the pace for the phased approach opening of the state of California. And I think we all know that today the governor might explain a bit more of what kind of retail businesses he thinks we can reopen again. But ultimately, it's up to the local health official to follow those guidelines and implement as he or she sees it fit with their own county and with the specific data they see in their own county. Here in Monterey County, it's Dr. Moreno, and you might have heard his name in the media. Dr. Moreno is a very, very conscientious public health official. And what I like you to understand is that Dr. Moreno's job is to keep all of us healthy. That's his job. His job is to ensure that we sail through the COVID-19 pandemic with the least amount of hospitalization, contraction of the virus, and the least amount of deaths. That's his only task. So he's a public health official. He's a doctor. He's a pediatrician by trade. He's appointed by the board of supervisors into that position. and he has to report only to his own consciousness. So Dr. Moreno is the man who looks out for every single one of us, and that many of us are not affected by COVID-19. That's part of his task and part of his success. So while a lot of folks are pointing and saying Dr. Moreno should do this, should do that, what is missing in that discussion is that his task is to get us through this as healthy as possible. And while we all experience impatience and while we all think we know what to do as the next step, that responsibility lies with someone who understands better than anyone else. Not, I don't understand public health, neither do many of you, but Dr. Moreno is the person who will understand what we have to do. So when I looked at the data from this morning, we had 247 positive COVID-19 cases in the county since the outbreak of the pandemic, and since we tracked that, we had 6 fatalities, and as of this morning, there were 100 cases designated as recovered. What Dr. Moreno is doing is that he is looking very closely at the Monterey County data, but what he's also doing is that he's working in conjunction with the health officials of the state, and he's working also in conjunction with the health officials of Santa Cruz County and San Benito County and San Luis Obispo County. They are coordinating what they are doing. And so I wanted to be absolutely transparent with the position of Dr. Moreno and his tasking. His tasking is, again, not to reopen our economy in the fastest way possible. His tasking is to look out for you and me. And I think he's doing a great job there. And while we are all eager to resume our normal activities, the fact is that no one of us will be acting normal, even though after everything is open. So we are going back right now to the topic of opening up our city, or opening up our facilities. And what we are doing is we are preparing for that phased opening that will come sooner than later. And Dr. Moreno is working on revising also the health order as it becomes necessary. As you saw, he updated the health order last week. It became effect this week, Monday, and construction is allowed. So a lot of the construction restrictions have been lifted, and you can now continue again to do your house remodel, not just buildings that serve essential services, but also other construction is allowed. And we have adjusted our operation and building inspection accordingly. There were also other activities allowed that he included in his revised health order, such as opening of craft stores and fabric stores, with implementation, of course, of social distancing. Nurseries, gardening, landscaping has been opened up again. So you can go to your favorite nursery and get plants and work in the garden. Interesting trivia for you to know is that the waste management landfill out in Moreno has really seen a reduction in waste being transported to the facility. That is absolutely expected. A lot of businesses are closed, restaurants are closed, but they have seen a huge spike in green waste coming in, which basically confirms that all of us have plenty of time to work in the garden and get rid of the nasty oxalis and other weeds and do a lot of pruning and planting. So there has been a spike in green waste that has been delivered to the landfill, and all the other numbers are showing a deep trend downwards, of course. So we can expect that our opening will affect the library, will affect the sports center, will affect our recreation centers, and our team is working right now on how are we going to open the sports center. For instance, the sports center has sent out a survey to our customers and asked them how likely is it that you will be back. Um, will you be back immediately? Will you be back in a while? We are processing that data, and we are working on plans on how we can open the facility. What are the cleaning procedures? What are the social distancing procedures? A lot of those questions have been answered by other states that are already opening up again. And so we will see how we can react and what the state allows us to do. So the library is also working on a phased opening plan. The library has been the focal point also of many discussions that we had. As I explained to the council, also the library is a very cherished institution here in the city of Monterey, first library in the state of California, founded in 1849. The same year the state of California was founded. So it is a very, very high profile library, and we need to open the library on day one. But the library will be not the library that was the library when we closed it on March 13. It will be a different library. It will be a library that has to implement protocols, that has to implement social distancing. And we are working with the library director and subsequently also with the library board on defining how are we going to operate a library. What makes the library a bit more challenging is also the funding for a public library. As you know, there are no membership charges. There are no programming fees to a certain degree. It's different than a sports center where you purchase a membership or where you pay for a bicycling class or a yoga class. The library services are expected to be free, and we are going to look at how are we coming up with millions of dollars to operate the library. Before we closed the library budget was about $3.2 million with very minor program income or donations coming in. The bulk of the $3.2 million comes through the general fund, and the bulk of the general fund money comes from the hotel tax and the sales tax. So the library is working on a phased opening, and I tell you right up front right now, this will be a very minimalized operation. We are shooting for opening for 5 days only, not 7 days, and 40 hours only. So we are working on that right now with the library director. But restoring library services means also that we come up either with a new funding model or our hotel and sales taxes where it was before, or we find a hybrid among the two options that I outlined right now. So we're working on opening the library. Parallel, we are working on opening the recreation centers and see what will be the need. There will be no summer camps. We cannot set up summer camps in the way that we set it up usually. We don't even know right now if we can have summer camps like Camp Kinsabe with 30, 50 folks, and we cannot just start planning for something that we can actually not implement. What makes this a little bit difficult as well for our summer camps, outdoor summer camps specifically, is that the governor has indicated that he is contemplating opening the schools earlier than they are scheduled to open. He spoke about a loss of knowledge, and he initiated a thinking to say, let's open the schools 2 or 3 weeks earlier to allow the teachers to work with their students and catch them up of the previous school year teaching materials to basically make up for that knowledge loss, how he called it. So summer camps, we will have one summer camp, large-scale summer camp. That's the summer camp in the sports center. That's easy to manage, that's easy to set up, doesn't require a lot of hiring of additional part-timers and training. But Whispering Pines and Camp Kinsabi, we cannot do that. So we are not doing this right now. We are looking also at the conference center. We have no conferences coming in the next 4 or 5 months, so nobody will be there, and we are using the time right now to help and support local businesses with their opening plans. Our conference center staff is hospitality staff, and so we are working on different working groups to say, how do you operate a hotel? How can you open a hotel under COVID-19 scenarios? How can you open restaurants under COVID-19 scenarios? What we also have offered, and that's an idea of our general manager for the conference center, Doug Phillips. He suggested to use the conference center as a training facility for all the hospitality staff to learn the new procedures, to learn how to serve somebody food, to learn how to clean a room, etc., etc. And we can only be roaring back as a destination if we build trust, and we need to have the trust of those coming to us that our restaurants are absolutely clean and wiped down regularly and are implementing procedures that prevent infections. Same for the hotel. So there will be a massive training effort, and we are planning on using the conference center, while it does not house conferences, to use that space to provide that additional training. Again, these are just all thought models right now. Nothing has been decided yet, but I wanted to share with you what we are doing and why we are doing what we are doing. The departments, the other departments, including also library and recreation, have received guidance with respect to the upcoming budget. And I want you to be aware that the upcoming budget is, of course, a huge challenge. We sent out a letter yesterday to the governor of California and asked him to ensure that the federal government also print money for us. That's what they are doing. I mean, there is no money laying around. $3 trillion is not money that they get out of their reserves. They are producing that money, but they haven't produced money. They haven't printed money, allocated billions of dollars to local governments in situations like in Monterey. While the CARES Act allocated money for states and cities greater than 500,000 residents, small cities, small counties like ours have been overlooked twice already. And so we went to the governor, who we know is supporting those efforts. And he received yesterday 2 letters from the city of Monterey, one letter from the city of Monterey, and 1 letter from the Monterey Bay city managers, including Santa Cruz County and Monterey County. And we, the city managers, also amplified the message that we are carrying the burden of the cost of many of those measures that are being implemented. As you know, deferment of sales taxes is hurting us. The challenge with the tourism industry is hurting us. Yesterday, the governor spoke about property tax and that there will be no fines if you don't pay your property tax. Property tax is the main contributor for school districts. Property tax is the main contributor for counties and paying for counties. City of Monterey receives also property tax. It's not our biggest revenue source, but City of Carmel depends on property tax. So it has to be seen how this measure will affect the cities. So in short, we are asking the governor to look out for us cities, because we have been overlooked. And I think the Herald has also an article about this today in their Today edition. So the departments now were tasked by us to look at budget reduction scenarios. We cannot manage our next 12 months if we do not further reduce our operational expenses. And those of you who are familiar with the city of Monterey, you will remember in October last year, 2019, we declared a fiscal emergency because we projected budget deficits for the next 3 years. So next year, 2021, fiscal year 2021, we projected in October a $2.8 million deficit. For the year thereafter, we predicted a $3.8 million deficit, and for the year thereafter, 5.2 million. So those deficits have not magically been eradicated by COVID-19. These are the burden, these are the deficit we are carrying into the next fiscal year. Now the tax payers, you all were very generous and approved Measure G as a sales tax measure, and that sales tax measure will start July 1st. And we'll probably see the first additional revenues coming in September, October. That's how long sales tax is being delayed, is being handed over by the state to the various cities. But that does not help us with the $2.8 million deficits because, frankly, sales volumes are down, as you know. So we have that existing deficit that we tried to fix with the Measure G, and it will be burdening us. And then we have the other area of the COVID-19 losses in hotel tax and sales tax and other revenues that we derive from the conference center. So our department heads are working on budget reduction plans and presenting that to us sooner or later. Our intent is to go public with our proposed budget May 27th. We are working on presenting to the council in a study session on May 27th our proposed budget. The budget will be brutal. It will be including a lot of program cuts that we simply cannot afford. We have to take a good hard look at many of our operational accounts. If you look at parks, there will be no planting material for the next fiscal year. If you look at streets, we will reduce materials that we have. We have to look at our memberships. We are a member of many organizations, and we really have to say, is it worth for us to be a member of certain organizations? And we have to take those memberships out. We have to look at how we spend money in internal funds, service funds. How do we spend money on information technology? How do we spend money on our fleet and our depreciation of fleet, maintenance cost of the fleet? We will retire a great deal of our rolling stock just to try to get by. So the department heads have been tasked to look at all the various options there, and we are looking at all options. We'll present them on May 27th, and our objective is to have at least 1 or 2 more council meetings before we approve the final budget in June. A good question came up during our meeting with the department heads. What are we doing if we really see the economy is roaring back and we are seeing that our losses are not as steep as we are predicting them right now? This is a great question. Best case scenario, if this happens, we'll adjust. We will go back and adjust the budget upwards. We have done this in better years when we came back to the council at mid-year and told them our revenues are a little bit higher. We are proposing to do this and that with that. Let's not forget one thing that just popped in my mind. We did this year in, I believe it was in January or February. I think it was in February. Time flies. When we had counted our money, and we had a budget surplus from the previous year of about $2.2 million, if I remember the number correctly. And we went to the council and said, let's put this in the savings account. And the council said yes. And so the good news is we have money in the savings account, and the budget has to be supplemented with our reserves. I spoke to you a couple of weeks ago that to fix our current year's budget, 1920, where we have over $10.5 million budget losses, revenue losses, we don't want to touch the reserves. But going forward into next fiscal year, I don't see right now a way out without touching the reserves in a reasonable way. We have $13.3 million in our reserves, 13.3, which is about 16.6% of our general fund. And we cannot balance the budget without touching the reserve. So to do all that by June, end of June, is a very complex system. It has a lot of changing variables, and we have to touch all of the topics just to get through the budget process and to bring something forward to the council, which makes sense. This will include additional employee concessions. We need to look at the employees, and we need to look at our employee salaries and at our employee benefits, and we need to discuss with our employees how they can contribute also to offset some of those losses. We cannot we cannot employee concession ourselves out of the budget crisis. That's impossible, just by the numbers and by the service levels we have to provide, but we have to leave every stone unturned. We need to touch every topic. Okay. There are a few questions coming up, and I tried to figure some of those out. There's a discussion going on about the wedding business or something like that. And again, it's not our call. That's the call of the health officer, Dr. Moreno, to lift restrictions of social gathering, if it's 10 people or 20 or 50. That's not our cup of tea. We are no experts in that. Cities have surrendered the authority for public health to the Monterey County Public Health Officer. And Dr. Moreno, as I've stated, his objective is to keep us all healthy and prevent death. And so we have to look at what Dr. Moreno is ordering with respect to lifting the restrictions. He's very much aware of the eagerness of businesses to reopen, and he gets multiple calls every day. I would say probably dozens of them, where people are urging him from their own perspective, and you can be assured that he is very thoughtful, and he will balance that. And from my words, you can deduct that I trust Dr. Moreno's leadership here very well, and that I'm part of a group of managers that is ready and available to help him with advice of what we think might be possible. Ultimately, again, COVID-19 is no joke, and we should not count us out of the crisis yet. Just because the sun is shining and it's warm doesn't mean that COVID-19 is not out there yet. So we have to look at that, and there is also the very realistic chance that in the quarter number 4 or first quarter next year, we will have maybe a relapse. So again, I understand the questions about opening businesses, social distancing protocols in place, and we do our best to come up with good recommendations and help Dr. Moreno to find good solutions. And he does this, as I stated before, in conjunction with other health officers. And when you look back at his reactions and actions, they followed what Santa Cruz was doing. They followed what other counties are doing. So we are not out of the marketplace, so to speak, of restrictions. We are very comfortably in there what other counties are doing as well. Let's go back. The sales tax question is pretty straightforward to answer. We projected a deficit of 2.8, 3.8, 5.2 million dollars. The sales tax was supposed to help offset those losses. It would have helped to offset those losses. However, sales tax is down. The 2.8, 3.8, 5.2 million dollars are still deficits that we have originally projected. In addition to that, now we have additional losses. So the sales tax measure G, which adds half a cent to every dollar that is being spent in the city of Monterey, will not offset the losses. It will probably not even help us right now with the current volume to make up the $2.8 million in projected deficits for next fiscal year. So I hope that answered that question. There's some there are some interesting questions that I don't think are pretty serious, but the other question came up about the business relief fund. The city of Monterey has three different types of help that we try to offer. Number one, we are trying to offer the rental assistance program that we call now emergency rental assistance. This is a program that we are funding out of federal funds, CDBG funds, plus we are funding them with our own housing income funds. So these are income funds that are coming from our housing programs. City of Monterey is very lucky that we have a very strong housing program, and we put together this program, which is now around $800,000 that we want to use to help renters in the city of Monterey or folks that have lost their job in the city of Monterey and cannot pay their rent. And we really have set it up as a regional program. If you worked in the city of Monterey, you got laid off in the city of Monterey, we are trying to help you, in addition to federal and state, to help you pay your rent, no matter where you live. So that's our rental assistance program, you may call it. The CDBG funds of $152,000 have contributed to that. That's the federal portion. It's still money, $150,000, but could be a lot more, but it's not more. And then we have additional housing income, and together it's about $820,000 right now. So that program is being set up right now. There are a lot of strings attached to this program because the government, the federal government, tells us who is eligible for that. Somebody who lost a $100,000 job, for instance, is not eligible for that program, but somebody who lost a $30,000 or $40,000 job is eligible for that program. So there are income restrictions also that tell us what to do. The money will be not given to the renters, but to the landlords. Also, the money cannot directly go to the renters. It needs to be auditable that it went solely for the purpose of paying rent. So we're working that program out right now, and it will become important probably in the months of July and August when other programs run out of money. We have a second pot of money allocated for the local economy. That's $1 million. This money is, again, money that is not coming out of the general fund where we are hurting the most. That money comes out of the parking fund reserves, and it comes out of the tideland reserves. The parking fund has reserves, and those reserves are built up to replace parking garages one day, to rebuild parking lots, to implement new technology. So there is a strong reserves, and we felt we can take $500,000 of the parking fund and allocate this into a local economic stimulus plan. and then we take another $500,000 from the Thailand funds and allocate this also into a local economy stimulus plan. I want to be very clear that we are looking right now at the details for that program. We are working with the Community Foundation and we're working with the Chamber of Commerce to figure out the details. I'm very interested that this program also looks at micro businesses who have 1 to 5 to 10 employees only. We cannot only look at the big shiny operations that we have. That's very important to look at our restaurants, to look at our hotels and motels. Trust me, that's important. But we also have to look at the small shops that are in equal pain, if not more pain right now. And so we will structure the program in a way also to ensure that your barber at the corner might get funding through that program. So we're working those details out right now, and we are briefing the council about that at our next council meeting on May 19th. So there will be an update about that program as well. There are a few questions about the beach closure. The beach closure is working very well. We received a lot of complaints from residents that were concerned that there were gatherings on the beach from out-of-towners, etc. And so that forced us to and in addition, the governor was explaining his challenges that he sees with Californians. Remember, he said that the virus doesn't take a weekend off. And so he was threatening to close all the beaches in the state of California. Ultimately, he just did beach closures in Orange County. But as part of that analysis, we also looked at how can we help our residents, especially the residents living at Del Monte Beach, who had also a lot of inflow from out-of-towners. I think we came up with a very balanced approach. Nobody likes it so much. That means we did it right. And it means that when we looked at the beaches last weekend, we were highly successful in preventing the gatherings that we had the previous weekend, where people came down with coolers and tents, and in some areas we had 10, 20 people enjoying the beach. That unfortunately is not allowed yet, and we are tasked to implement that. Again, I think our beach closure is a measured approach. Of course, I understand a lot of folks are still feeling inconvenienced with that, but the big picture is everybody can still use the beach. And we didn't have a beach closure like others had in Orange County or Santa Cruz County, where they closed the beach during daytime off for anyone other than surfers that can carry their board in the surf and do surfing, but nobody can walk on the beach. So I think our balanced approach is paying off and is working. That's what let me see from question about Jack's Park closed restrooms. We have our public restrooms open. Not every restroom is open, but the large ones at Wharf number 2 is open. The downtown bathrooms are open. There are sufficient bathrooms open for the homeless folks. It cannot be that we have every bathroom open for that, but the most of our restroom facilities are open and operational, and a big thank you goes out to our custodians who are out there every single day, 4 or 5 times a day, restocking, sanitizing, steam cleaning the public restrooms, and so they deserve a lot of credit for being out there every single day. Okay, let me just scroll up and down here one more time. I think these were all the questions also that were asked. I will look into the restroom at Jack's Park, whether they need to be open or not. as I said, we have to set priorities where we think it's important to open and close restrooms, but that's a good question. Um, so we are doing those meetings with a manager every 2 weeks. I think this is now the third or fourth time that we do it every 2 weeks, and we will continue to keep it every 2 weeks. You've seen that every day we're sending you out an email about COVID-19 that comes about 6 to 7, 8 o'clock at night, contains always new materials, very, very pointed short messages with interesting links. If you haven't signed up for that, sign up for that. You can go on monterey.org and /coronavirus and sign up, be part of our constant contact list and get those updates. Every day at 11 o'clock, we are holding a media call and talk to the media and tell them what is going on in the city. And you see a lot of our input is reflective in the reporting by the Weekly as well as the Monterey Herald, as occasionally KION and KSBW. So that is that. Let me take a quick look at my notes here if I forgot something to say. Okay, that was that. Let me conclude by saying we understand, everyone understand that now is the time that we are all eager to get back to normal, and we are all just itchy to be out and about and do things like we are used to do. It's a difficult time right now. We're stuck in our homes, and we are going quickly in and out the grocery stores, and we are using alternative modes of delivery of food, and we hear the big picture, and we hear other states doing other things, and quietly we are asking ourselves, well, why aren't we doing it? I think it's utmost important to remain patient right now, and hopefully sooner than later those restrictions will be lifted. Again, public health is the gravest concern that we have right now, and the stepwise opening up is happening. And it's tough to be patient. I am a very impatient person. I want results always very fast, and I want to get things accomplished sooner than later. And it's a trait that I do not have. So I share with many of you, why can't we do this? Why can't we do that? The rules have to be black and white. Right now, we have to follow what our health officials are telling us is the prudent course of action, and we have to ask them also the tough questions to push a little bit. But in the end, I think so far our leadership here in the county as well as in the state has been exemplary, and I really think the path that we are on is a very reasonable path. So I'm asking you to remain sheltered in place, remain patient, enjoy what we can enjoy every day. The bay is still beautiful and still out there. And I'm very sure that sooner or later we don't have to see each other every 2 weeks, but every 4 weeks, and it will be face to face again in the library. And yes, there will be donuts and coffee again. So with that, you might have noticed I got a haircut. I'm very proud of that as well. And it was not done by a barber who came to the police station. That was good fake news. It was done here at home in Monterey. So thank you so much for listening. Stay safe, shelter in place, meet the moment. And I hope in 2 weeks it will be another sunny day and there will be progress already, more progress. So thank you again for tuning in. Have a great, safe day.